Welcome to the Labor of Love podcast. We are back, and we are so grateful and honored that you guys decided to tune in with us just one more time. We don't take it for granted that you gave us opportunity to be in your home, in your vehicle, in your ear, and we really appreciate you for investing the time in us. We just want to ask you if you find any value from this content, please share it with somebody and let them know, hey, this is a dope avenue for us to just talk about our relationship God's way, and really just talk about what it really means to love. We believe that when you love on purpose, you live in purpose. Everything that flows from your life, all the troubles. The Bible says in Proverbs, said, guard your heart, from out of it
Hmm.
come all the issues of life.
Yes.
And so we just want you to have heart health through this podcast, baby. It's good to see you, girl.
You too. I'm happy that you're home. I try to enjoy these days with you before you go out to the workforce.
Yeah, the working world, the working world. It's always good to spend time with you, boo.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. So, um, guys, we have been trying our darndest to make sure this podcast is real and relevant. We want to make sure this podcast is a blessing to you. And tonight is no different. I really want us to be unscripted, but have some kind of structure, and you'll see that in a minute. But really want to speak to just some things that we've been going through as it relates to my wife getting this microphone together. I promise we gonna sort out how this thing work in a little bit, y'all. We still noobs to the podcast, so yeah, just the whole last 2 years has been kind of rough. We went through a few job changes,
Hmm.
which has been like struggle bus in and of itself.
Hmm.
I changed jobs a couple times. You changed jobs, and in the middle of that, we had like some financial insecurity. Then
Hmm.
um, health issues for me that kind of got in the way of like energy and all kind of things come along with that. Um, on top of that, we had a newborn baby. On top of that, he wouldn't latch breastfeeding. I'll let you talk to that if you want. But it was struggling with feeding him, and then just a lot of things. But it's I just wanted to get from your perspective, like what has this last like couple years been like for you? Like what has it been like?
These past 2 years have been um, they've been a challenge. Um, it's been it's been very uncomfortable, and when I think of everything that hit us, I feel like it started at the top of the summer. Well, kind of late spring going into the summer, like, right after we had the baby, and it just sort of has been a domino effect from there.
Hmm.
We have had some high highs and some low
Low.
lows. And I'm gonna be honest with you, from my current perspective, and I don't think it's accurate. I just from what I can think of right now, it feels like the lows have outweighed the highs.
Mm.
And it's interesting because even just knowing now, we are kind of in another low, kind of like we're in another valley, just the
Hmm.
peaks and valleys. Um, and knowing that even in the valleys that we began to experience, knowing that God saw us through every last one of them,
Mm,
it still made this valley rough.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I honestly believe that the storms we've been going through
Mhm.
have been really building our faith.
Mhm.
Like, I know we are people of faith anyway. However, I think God uses certain things, certain elements, that even if He didn't cause it, He uses it
Mhm.
um, to grow us.
Mhm.
I believe the storms we've been going through is preparing us for the things we're getting ready to face together. And I believe that God is saying, for the next part of your journey, your faith got to be greater.
Mhm.
And it's not to say that we won't have doubt. It's not to say, no, I'm sorry, not doubt. It's not to say we won't have fear,
Mhm. Mhm.
because we will feel the fear. But God is saying you got to push past that fear, um, because the obstacle's still gonna be there. Like we go to bed every night, and God wake us up the next day. That's another opportunity to punch fear in the face. There's giants in the land. He took us through the wilderness, took us through the Red Sea. He took us through the plagues in Egypt. He took us through the slavery. All that stuff led up to the giants in the land. And he wants to know if fear gonna keep us from getting it. Faith is not the absence of giants. Faith is seeing the giants and saying we gonna take the land anyway.
Mhm.
And so I really want you guys to understand that, man, relationships in general are difficult, but man, when you get married and you got like you become one with somebody else, and then you got all the things that go along with that emotionally and spiritually and all these other things mentally. You really got to fight for your marriage. You really you really got to fight for that person that's beside you through the storms, because it's easy to give up when you're single.
Mhm.
It's easy to walk away from a relationship when you're single. I've done it. Like, you ain't married, it's easy for you to say, you know what, I ain't feeling this, I'm out. But I believe, and I believe my wife believes as well, in the covenant of marriage that says no matter how hard it gets, no matter how dark the night, we waking up in the morning together. So again, not to be all doom and gloom, but man, I want y'all to hear from us, because if you look on social media, if you see us out, you might think, hey, it's all good with them all the time. But man, it took some sweat equity to build what we got. I'm talking about in the weight room and in the waiting room together to build the muscle, um, to not have a perfect marriage, but to have a perfecting marriage and a progressing marriage, um, even through the storm. Anything you got on there, boo?
Um, I definitely really that when you said fighting for each other in storms, it really resonated with me. Um, because I originally went to it's more so about fighting together, and it's like no, sometimes you do have to fight for the other person. Because there have been some moments I think, well, I know for a fact we both have experienced weak moments, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just I just appreciate how even in those moments there have been times when we've had to fight for
Hmm.
the other person because we were just too weak in that moment
Hmm.
to really just go for it.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
For sure. For sure. For sure. What do you think keep us going? Like, what do you think is like really keeping us like moving forward together?
I think having the tough conversations,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Being intentional about uh, celebrating each other and having an attitude of gratitude. Like I realize that it's so easy. It's so easy to complain. Um, and I know I have been really irritable a lot lately because of everything that's been going on. And, I try to be mindful of how I interact with you because I know that that can cause more harm than good. And so it makes me think about a time, actually recently, to be honest, earlier. No, it was last week. It was last week. You left to go to work and you left some chili on the counter, a plate full of chili. And I called you. I called you literally to tell you, like, babe, you left the chili on the like I was irritated because you left the chili on the counter. And when you answered the phone, I said, I love you. I was like, okay, that's all I wanted. And hung up the phone. And I just politely put the chili away. And I realized like that is one of the things for me that I've just been intentional about is just one, picking my battles, and two, being intentional about speaking life giving words to you. Because if it's challenging for me, I can only imagine how challenging it is for you. And so, like I said, we do have to have some tough conversations, and there's some things that we probably don't get to address all the time because life just be life.
Hmm.
But I think, like I said, just being intentional about just speaking life as opposed to just being like focusing on the petty has really
Yeah.
been helpful.
Yeah. I would definitely say that communication has been a game changer. Not only in showing empathy and like trying to make sure we season our words with love with each other, but like being open and honest about what we do need to address. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we address things, I have found that we don't beat around the bush. Like we make decisive with our words. Like we understand like hey how to say it, but things that need to be said, we say them.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that relationships can go real south if you don't have that friendship and that relationship where you can actually say what's on your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I don't have the freedom to say what's on my mind with you, it ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
Like you are literally the person closest to my heart, and if I can't express it with you, then that opens the door for doubt and anger and bitterness and all that kind of resentment and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think while we've been going through, it's helped us stay connected because we have been transparent
Oh, absolutely.
with each other in
Yeah.
our struggles. Like I couldn't imagine faking our way through this.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Listen, faking your way through it ain't gonna work. It's like putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound. What are you doing besides bleeding out?
Yeah.
You bleeding out. You need a tourniquet and you need to get to the hospital immediately. Stop the bleeding. Band-aid ain't gonna do it. So I just really want to emphasize the importance of that communication piece. Is there any tips that you would give somebody like practically on how to navigate like any kind of storm in marriage using communication? like the way you communicate, or is there any practical tips you would just say, hey, here's one thing that, from my experience as a social worker, from my experience as a marriage and family therapist, and from my experience as a wife, like what is one thing that you would recommend um, a couple do as it relates to effective communication?
One thing that's been really helpful for me, and I've just seen the difference in how it has enhanced our communication, is literally approaching things with curiosity. It helps, one, to lower defenses.
You said doing what?
Approach communication and whatever type of situation. Oh, let me say this: approach conflict with curiosity.
Okay.
So your face is just so funny to me, but it helps lower defenses, and it helps decrease being offended. So for instance, if we are in the middle of in the communication, well, anywho, in the middle of a conversation, and you respond to me in a way that I don't necessarily like, instead of me just matching your energy, I'm just curious about why did you respond that way, and I literally
Mm-hmm.
just ask you, babe, what you feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
instead of coming back and like, who you talking to like that? It's just like, what you feeling right now? And it automatically helps. Again, keeps me from becoming offended. And when I asking you, or like been just being curious about what you feel or what's happening right now, I realize that a lot of times it's not even connected to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's something else. And so for me, that has been a game changer.
Yeah, definitely that approaching it with curiosity piece, like really seeking to understand versus seeking to be understood.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a game changer. Another thing is um, having grace.
Oh yes.
I would say having grace and understanding that we are human at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day. Like, no matter what your status is socially, no matter who you are in the church, no matter who you are in the community, at the end of the day, you're a man and a woman. And so, approaching the situation knowing that we are both flawed, we both got issues, we gonna die with issues.
Yeah.
Um, but the good thing about it is, like, God showed us the ultimate form of grace. And like, I believe relationships should be based on the creator's intent
Mm-hmm.
and pattern after him. And so if he can look past our faults and still meet needs,
Mm-hmm.
which is what marriage really is meeting needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's ministry.
Yeah.
It's meeting needs when you got a need. I think that kind of helps you weather a storm a
Mm-hmm.
little better because you don't look at it with a pointing a finger.
Yeah.
You don't cast blame. You're not accusatory. You know what I'm saying? When you're looking
Mm-hmm.
at somebody like, oh, I could very well be in that same position mentally. I could very well have woke up like this today. Or I can understand why they frustrated. I can understand why they kind of pissed off at me. That'll give me that wherewithal to say, I may not agree with the methodology of how they approached it, but I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So now, since I understand, let me minister to them in that instance.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that has got us through a lot of our dark places. Because you saw me as human, I saw you as human, but I saw you in a way that I saw you as an extension of me. I saw somebody said, when I look at my wife, I'm looking in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and the mirror telling me exactly what I presented.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see you acting out a certain way, I gotta question me. Okay, now what am I putting in the mirror? Ooh, that'll preach. I'm stealing it from whoever said that. I don't even know who said it. When I see that reflection, it only showed me what I put in the mirror, what I stepped in front of the mirror.
Mm.
And so that helps me season my words. It helps me understand, where you coming from. Um, I want to speak to ways to build resilience. I
Mm.
want to speak to ways to build emotional fortitude when it come down to going through the challenges of life with another human being.
Oh wow. Um, a lot of it. A lot of it has to do with self awareness.
Mm,
And really knowing your hot buttons, your triggers, and what does it look like to navigate uh, when you know those different emotions when you are triggered, and really giving yourself time to really to honestly be curious with what you're experiencing.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of times we are so quick to try to sweep what we feel under the rug. We try to distract ourselves. We do so many different things. And a lot of times we just don't take the time to really sit with what we're feeling. And I believe that's a big part of being resilient.
mm,
Not necessarily running from it, but running to it.
mm. You said something that I think I want to interject something there. You spoke to realizing what you feel
Mm-hmm.
and understanding what you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would speak to the need to have professional guidance and counseling
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and coaching to really unpack what am I feeling and what is causing me to feel this way. What are my triggers? What emotional baggage do I have maybe from my childhood? And that's something I think should happen before premarital counseling.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one thing I've learned, and this is men and women, I want to really emphasize women too, because I think a lot of people feel like men are the only ones who don't know how to deal with their emotions.
Man.
But the reality is, it's men and women. If you look at it from a male perspective, society typically, men are supposed to be tough, and so as a young boy, when they hurt themselves, they're taught when they feel that pain, it's okay, brush it off, you fine.
Wow.
In the name of I don't want my son to be soft, or I don't want him to be a marshmallow. But what people fail to realize is you don't teach your son to be quote unquote tough or emotionally resilient by causing him to stifle his emotions.
Wow.
That actually causes more harm than good.
Wow.
So when you actually take the time to say, hey, son, it looks like you're feeling sad, like actually start young, name those different emotions, and then teach him how to manage those emotions.
Wow.
Then we're building emotional intelligence.
It's emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the antithesis of that is what we've been doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you are suppressing emotions
Mm-hmm.
and not telling them what the emotions are and
Mm-hmm.
how to navigate them.
Mm-hmm.
So then you got men growing up emotionally unintelligent,
Mm-hmm.
can't even put words to why I feel this way or what I'm really feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm good
Mm-hmm.
or I'm mad. That's the only two emotions. It's like I'm good that I say I'm good or I express anger.
Mm-hmm.
Good ain't even an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It really ain't even a state of being.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got anger, which is an umbrella emotion,
Mm-hmm.
which got all kind of other things under that only you see the umbrella, which is anger.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the things that result from not allowing anybody, male or female, to express what they are, feeling and helping them navigate. Okay, hey, what you're feeling is a result of not being picked during tag or not being picked to be on the basketball team. You're feeling abandonment or you're feeling like you're not enough, unworthy.
Mm-hmm.
So that in turn manifested in anger. Nobody had that conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you're feeling because you didn't get a Valentine's Day card. You're feeling like you're inadequate,
Mm-hmm.
or you're feeling like you're not beautiful, or you're not handsome. In turn, you start acting out. But since there's no emotional intelligence there, you grow up to be 30, 40 years old, and you are you are behaving in a way that's not conducive to any relationships, all because you're not emotionally intelligent in your own self to know, hey, this makes me feel this way, or this is what happened to me, and this is why it manifested in my adulthood. So definitely, in order to have strong relationship with another person, I truly believe the model is loving God. Now, first and foremost, know who created you, know why you were created, and know his specs, his manual. And then loving yourself. Learn how to love you. Because if I didn't love me, there's no way I could treat you right.
Mm-hmm.
Especially going through financial issues. Especially because a man's finance can be his pride and joy. Man can look at his money and get a sense of self worth. Oh, I'm able to provide. I'm able to put a roof over your head. I'm able to protect. Going through a season like we've been going through, where it's like, man, more month than money has a new meaning for us. We got more year than month than money. You
Mm-hmm.
see what I'm saying? Going through a season like that, when to the outside world, it don't even make sense for us to be together. To the outside world, it don't even make sense for us to have what we have. And it's all by the grace of God. But what I'm saying is, if I didn't love me and know who I was and know what God put in me, and have the wherewithal to say, I'm a king, I'm a king and I'm a fighter, and I'm gonna go out and hunt. No matter what the weather is, I'm going out and I'm hunting. I'm gonna bring that deal back to the table. Why? Because I serve a God who is a go-getter. I serve a God who is creative. So I'm gonna find a way. I'm a creative. God, first thing the Bible tell you in the beginning, God.
Mm-hmm.
So because I know that and I know He made me, now look at me a different way. I'm able to love you because I love the mess out of me. Shoot, who? Me? I love me. And I'm able to in turn show my love for you because I got that love for me. Even in the hard times, I tell myself, you were fearfully and wonderfully made. It helped me get up in the morning and get out here and get it. In the hard times, I realized that all things are working together, which means it's like the egg and the sugar and the flour and the milk is working together, and God finna make a beautiful cake.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that. And so when I roll out that bed in the morning, I don't care how tired I am, I can roll over and say, I love you, girl. I'll see you later. We gonna be all right. Cause I know it's working. Even when I don't know how it's gonna work, I say, we gonna be all right. The darkest part of the night, I don't know when the sun coming up. But because of the God I serve, and because I know I'm his man, I can tell you, hey, just be patient. The sun coming up. And while it's midnight, we're gonna praise like Paul and Silas till the chains break. We in the storm together. The song says, the storm is passing over.
Mm-hmm.
There's another song that says, it won't always
Yeah,
be like this.
that's it.
You want to talk about fortitude? This is what I'm gonna attribute our strength to. God's word. and our relationship with God. Because I don't know how to tell anybody to make it through what we done made it through without a relationship with the King. I don't know how. I'm pretty sure there's ways you can tell somebody like how to get through things. But if it had not been for our relationship with God, privately, individually, and collectively, I know for a certain, signing papers in the courtroom, I know for a fact, if it had not been, hallelujah, I feel like preaching, y'all better come get me. If it had not been for the Lord on our side, where would we be? The testimony we telling y'all, like you listening in on the conversation we having, but the testimony is marriage is not all peaches and cream. It's not all sunshine and roses. And at the same time, it can be done. At the same time, you can make it through. I think the first 3 years of marriage, somebody said the first three or the first five, people go back and forth, are the toughest years.
I thought it was the first 7.
Somebody said the first seven. They don't know. They tough. The first 20 are tough, I guess. Here's the thing. It's all about your perspective. It's all about how you frame that picture. I'm realizing day to day that it's going to be challenges till we die. In marriage, it's going to be challenges. I realize that. It's all about how we choose to look at it. It's all about how we choose to show up. I'm preaching. This is supposed to be a podcast. What would you give? What advice would you give couples? Just knowing some of the stuff, and we didn't go full transparency on it, but just knowing some of the stuff we've been through, and we can successfully say we've come through it, got married, and then COVID happened. We only dated less than 6 months. Got married. Then COVID happened. Like literally the week after we said I do, shut down. Forced in the house together. Together. Financial difficulties. Health difficulties. 2 miscarriages. Health difficulties. Unable to breastfeed. Difficulties in family. Like, what advice would you give? What advice would you give to people, whether they are married now or looking to get married? What advice would you give somebody if they sitting beside you right now saying, you know, I know hard times are coming, I know storms are coming, but how do you make it through?
There are quite a few things that come to mind. And one thing that really is speaking loudly in my spirit right now is be careful who you share with. It's a lot of people who will give you the advice, girl, that couldn't have been me. I'd have been gone. So I think it's important to be mindful of your village. I saw a post on Facebook that said children aren't the only ones who need villages. Adults do too. So be mindful of who you share with.
Wow.
Um, and also, something else that's really, really speaking loudly in my spirit is being intentional about showing up and loving self the very exact way you desire to be loved. And I say that because when you know how to show up for self, when you know what it is to genuinely love and care for yourself,
Hmm.
um, not only do you teach your partner to do the same, but you're able to do the same for them also. So if I'm not gentle with myself, if I'm not kind with myself, if I'm not grace, if I'm not showing myself grace, I'm not doing it for my partner. If I'm, constantly beating myself up, the way I put it to you this way, the way I treat you says a lot about how I feel about myself.
Wow.